Let's start with your childhood. So, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in South Florida, Palm Beach County area. So my mom and my dad were actually both Marines. I can actually say my mama wore combat boots.
No shit.
Yeah, so mom and dad were both Marines. They were stationed together in Hawaii, and that's where I was born there in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii. At a young age, we moved from there shortly after my mom and my dad got out of the Marine Corps. They both did an enlistment and got out. Moved back to Florida, which was home for them. That was my first time as a baby, when we moved from where I was born to Florida, and then I grew up there, all through grade school and high school and everything. So South Florida is what I would essentially call home.
So your parents were both Marines, but you weren't necessarily a military brat. They were out like at a very young age.
Yeah, pretty much. But anybody that's been in the Marine Corps kind of knows that mentality and that lifestyle, it sticks with you. You don't really, they have that saying, once a Marine, always Marine. And I feel like it kind of holds true because you keep that regimented lifestyle, that discipline, and they passed that down to me. I mean, my childhood, man, I remember get like chores in my house consisting of like white glove inspections to make sure I dusted my bathroom correctly and shit.
Holy shit
that I had no clue was actually going to be relevant during my time in the Marine Corps, because you actually get inspection. You get inspected on how you clean things and stuff like that. Like,
you guys have the worst inspections.
Yeah. Whether it's a uniform inspection or field day, or field days, the term that we use to clean. It would be like every Thursday would be field day, and there's times I can remember, dude, we've had inspections. Our company gunny would come through, and the inspections would go. We just keep failing till like 3:00 in the morning, and we had to be up for PT at 5. And I think there was a kind of a method to the madness, if you will. Like, it wasn't just to make us, just to be, mean to us and be like, no, you suck at cleaning. It was to see how we would perform with sleep deprivation, being up all night and then having to perform 2 hours later, on a strenuous, PT exercise, or doing a ruck march or a hike or something like that. So,
yeah.
What
did your parents do in the Marine Corps?
So my dad was a combat engineer. My mom was an administrative clerk. And then my stepfather, he's a Vietnam era Marine, Marine Scout sniper. He did multiple tours over Vietnam, and, saw some pretty hairy shit. So.
No shit. So when did your stepdad come into the picture?
Yeah, how old was I when my stepdad came into the picture? I want to say it was like probably 12 years old when he came into the picture.
Okay.
So I was still fairly young, almost a teenager.
Were you close with your biological father?
Yeah, my dad and I have always been close.
Are you close with your stepfather?
I mean, close in a sense, like, we could go months without talking and then pick up right where we left off, kind of thing. Like, we're not like, close as my biological father and I are, but I mean, we get along good. There were some times during my childhood where we didn't get along, just for random reasons, but that's just, childhood and parenting, in general. That's how it is.
So he was a fucking scout sniper in Vietnam with multiple tours?
Yeah. He saw some shit. He had some kills under his belt and stuff like that. And I think I kind of, like a lot of teenagers, you kind of go through that phase where, you don't really want to, follow the rules and that shit. And he was just like, hey, you're going to live by my rules. And him and I fucked it's quite a bit. But, you get past that shit,
Yeah.
As I've gotten older and I've matured, him and I've gotten closer and closer.
The Vietnam era is like, in fact, that's the whole reason I even joined the military to begin with.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, like I feel like that era just got, those were some hard dudes, and they didn't have the backing of the country like World War II did. Not to take anything from World War II, because that was, you know what I mean, but coming home from Vietnam, you definitely weren't getting a pat on the back.
Hell no.
And I think that Vietnam is like really where special operations and unconventional warfare
Absolutely.
really started to
Absolutely.
come into play.
I agree.
And yeah, I mean, so would he tell you things that happened over there, or
He didn't really advertise stuff. He wasn't a big drinker, but if he, had a couple beers on a random occasion or whatever, he'd loosen up and some things would kind of slip, especially if it was like, me and one of my stepbrothers were around. It was just us, and it was kind of, that environment where it wasn't a bunch of family members and people around. He had said some things, but you could tell he'd been through some shit. Like, he had pretty severe PTSD. I mean, we knew it. Like, I was exposed to that as a kid before I even knew what PTSD was.
yeah,
Even when I joined the Marine Corps, I didn't really have a true understanding of kind of what he went through. But I just remember, like, waking up in the middle of the night as a kid, and I could, like, my bedroom was kind of right down the hallway from our living room or our family room, and he had like one of those lazy boy recliners. And I remember waking up at night, and this happened multiple times, where I could hear the rocking chair squeaking, like somebody was sitting in it. And I just thought it was really bizarre. I'm like, as a kid, you're like, oh my God, is there a ghost in the house or whatever? And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and just not being able to resist going out there and see why this chair was squeaking. So I'd get up like I was going to the bathroom, and he'd be sitting there, like, in the dark with his 357 Magnum sitting on his lap.
man.
And, like, I don't know what kind of state of mind he was in, or what he was doing. I didn't ask. I just remember going out there, seeing it, and him being like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I had to go to the bathroom, And so I didn't know at the time. I thought it was really strange, but years later, as I came to understand what PTSD was and kind of some of the things associated with having PTSD, I kind of realized, well, he was just kind of having one of those moments,
I mean, you probably saved his life by coming out of your room.
There's no telling, dude. There's no telling.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Do you see, like, a lot of similarities between what you've gone through and, like, looking back, what he was doing?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
A lot of the isolation, isolation, anger, stuff like that. You're trained, to act with violence, like, you know what I mean? And you come back, and you're put into civilization, and you're expected to act as, a normal member
Forget
of society.
everything you know.
Yeah, and so I can surely relate to seeing how he had reacted at certain times and the way he was, and it surely does relate to the way I've kind